Kyle fears Diane may not survive as her disappearance takes a terrifying turn, while Victor pressures Nikki to reveal the truth she's desperately hiding. Meanwhile, Phyllis grows closer to Matt, sparking an unexpected romance that could ignite outrage across Genoa City and leave Sharon, Daniel, and Victor facing shocking consequences. Welcome to Celebrity Gossip 24 Hours, where the drama unfolds and the stories captivate. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of Young and the Restless, uncovering untold stories and hidden truths behind the headlines. Kyle fears Diane may not survive as Victor pushes Nikki for the truth. Tuesday's episode of The Young and the Restless delivered rising tension, emotional confrontations, and dangerous decisions as Diane's disappearance became even more alarming, while Nikki struggled to keep her devastating health crisis hidden from Victor. At the outdoor cafe, Jack met with Kyle to discuss the disturbing developments surrounding Diane. Jack joked about Patty's terrible quiche before quickly shifting the conversation to far more pressing matters. You want to know everything Kyle had discovered after following Dr. Lawrence Markham. Kyle explained that he had tracked Lawrence to a heavily secured estate hidden in the woods near Power Lake. The isolated property looked more like a fortress than a private residence. His investigation confirmed that the home belonged to Dr. Markham himself, making Kyle increasingly convinced Diane could be trapped there. Jack admitted the possibility worried him deeply. They reviewed Patty's unbelievable claims that Markham had been recommended by Diane's therapist. The problem was that every attempt to verify the therapist had failed because the person simply didn't exist. Even stranger was Lawrence's insistence that Patty had been completely cured, something neither Jack nor Kyle believed for a second. Kyle immediately wanted to head to the property, but Jack urged caution. If they acted recklessly, whoever was holding Diane might relocate her before they could reach her. Their conversation took another bizarre turn when Jack mentioned Patty's latest fantasy. She intended to become his wife. Kyle could hardly believe what he was hearing. Between Patty's obsession and Markham's suspicious behavior, he became convinced they had very little time left to rescue his mother before something terrible happened. Meanwhile, at Lawrence's secluded house, Diane continued her unsettling therapy session. Lawrence encouraged her to examine the emotions that had brought her to this point, suggesting the answers were buried within her own memories. Diane quietly admitted she desperately wanted to understand how she had ended up there. Trying to gain her confidence, Lawrence urged Diane to think of him as a trusted old friend. He then steered the conversation toward one of the most painful moments of her life, discovering Jack aboard a yacht with another woman. Surprised, Diane demanded to know how he knew about that incident. Lawrence calmly claimed she had spoken about it, while confused after he supposedly found her wandering along the roadside. Although Diane initially resisted discussing the painful memory, he redirected the conversation toward her marriage. Diane described her relationship with Jack as the closest she had ever come to true happiness. She believed they had built something genuine together and always assumed Jack felt the same. Lawrence responded with a cynical view of love, describing it as little more than emotional attachment and irrational obsession rather than something lasting. Curious, Diane asked whether he had ever experienced love himself. Rather than answering, he returned to the events aboard the yacht. As Diane reflected on that night, her emotions surfaced. She explained how Patty's obsession with Jack ultimately led her to discover them together in the yacht's stateroom. The memory remained filled with heartbreak, anger, and humiliation. Still, she admitted that Jack had not been entirely responsible. When Lawrence quietly suggested the drugs had influenced Jack's behavior, Diane looked startled. Once again, she questioned how he knew such private details. Lawrence repeated that she had revealed everything during the night he rescued her. He added that while ecstasy could affect judgment, it would not completely erase Jack's ability to make decisions. Diane broke down as she admitted that after the betrayal, she wondered whether she simply wasn't enough for her husband. At the same time, she struggled with her inability to forgive him despite everything they had survived together. Elsewhere at the Genoa City Athletic Club, Victoria encountered Claire, who immediately noticed that her mother had obviously been crying. Claire gently asked whether Nikki's medical appointment had produced any answers. Determined to protect her mother's secret, Victoria lied, saying they were still waiting for results. Claire admitted feeling guilty after attempting to arrange a family brunch for Victor and Nikki, believing her efforts had only made the situation worse. She then confessed that she had told Victor about Nikki's recurring headaches. Victoria wasn't angry. In fact, she admitted part of her wanted Victor to know something was wrong. Unable to keep everything bottled up any longer, Victoria finally revealed that Nikki's diagnosis was far more serious than anyone had expected. Claire struggled to process the possibility that Nikki could lose her eyesight. Even so, Victoria insisted the information must remain confidential, especially from Victor. Claire wondered whether Nikki planned to tell him herself, since he had already gone upstairs to see her. Inside Nikki's suite, Nikki anxiously researched brain surgery risks on her laptop when someone knocked at the door. To her surprise, it was Victor. Though reluctant, she allowed him inside. Victor explained that Claire had mentioned the headaches and that yesterday's frightening episode convinced him the problem was much more serious than simple stress. Nikki insisted nothing serious was wrong. She claimed the headaches were stress-related and tried to reassure him that everything was under control. Victor wasn't convinced. He brought up her blurred vision and reminded her how much pain she had clearly been suffering. Nikki continued, denying the severity of her condition. She thanked Victor for caring, but explained she had not even informed Nicholas because he already had enough worries. Their conversation soon shifted into another heated argument. Victor defended allowing Matt Clark to stay at the ranch, while Nikki accused him of creating unnecessary danger by bringing a criminal into the family home. Victor even questioned whether Nikki's stress might be making her condition worse. That accusation crossed the line. Furious, Nikki declared that Victor himself had become the greatest source of her stress. She blamed his decisions for placing their children and grandchildren at risk. Then she did something that stunned him. Nikki removed her wedding rings and handed them back to Victor before ordering him to leave. Victor silently accepted the rings, pointed at Nikki in frustration, and walked out. Once outside the closed door, the usually unshakable Newman patriarch looked visibly shaken by what had just happened. As Victor headed downstairs, he encountered Victoria and Claire. Victoria expressed disappointment after learning he had argued with Nikki and suggested that giving each other space might be best. Victor wasn't convinced. The conversation only strengthened his suspicion that both Victoria and Claire were deliberately hiding important information about Nikki's health. He demanded to know what they weren't telling him. Back at the cafe, Kyle's anxiety reached a breaking point. Determined to save Diane, he proposed calling the police immediately. Jack rejected the idea, fearing any official investigation would alert Lawrence and cause Diane to be moved before authorities could intervene. Unwilling to wait any longer, Kyle announced a far more dangerous plan. If no one else would act, he intended to break into Dr. Markham's property himself. Jack pleaded with his son to reconsider, warning that rushing in alone could make everything worse. Kyle refused to back down. In his mind, time was running out. If Patty decided to make good on her twisted fantasy of marrying Jack until death do us part, Diane could be in immediate danger. Back inside Lawrence's home, Diane continued revealing painful truths. She admitted that although Jack had forgiven her for faking her own death, part of her never fully believed his forgiveness was genuine. Discovering him with Patty on the yacht convinced her that she had never truly possessed his heart. Lawrence quietly suggested she might be right. Perhaps, he said, the painful experience was a sign that she should finally let Jack go and begin a new chapter without him. Meanwhile, Nate arrived to meet Nikki privately. She reminded him that only Victoria knew the truth about her condition and insisted it remain that way. After reviewing her MRI results, Nate explained that finding the right surgical specialist would be critical for giving her the best chance of recovery. Overwhelmed with fear, Nikki asked whether he would perform the operation himself because she trusted him with her life. Sadly, Nate reminded her that he was no longer able to operate. Nikki immediately realized her mistake and apologized, admitting anxiety had clouded her thinking. Nate reassured her that although he could not perform surgery, he would help assemble the best medical team possible. He also reminded her that she would need the support of the people who love her most during the difficult journey ahead. The episode ended with Victor still searching for answers. Frustrated that Nikki continued shutting him out, he complained that she was deliberately keeping secrets from him. He believed Victoria and Claire were doing exactly the same thing. Determined to uncover the truth, Victor demanded complete honesty, convinced that everyone closest to him knew far more about Nikki's condition than they were willing to admit. Today's next update. Young and the Restless. Phyllis and Matt's unexpected romance could turn Genoa City upside down. The Young and the Restless may be setting the stage for one of its most controversial romances, yet as Phyllis Summers and Matt Clark continue growing closer. With Matt preparing to ask Phyllis out on a date, all signs suggest that a surprising relationship could soon take shape. Although Phyllis may hesitate initially, there are plenty of reasons to believe she will eventually decide to give him a chance. The pair share an unusual bond. Both have become outsiders in Genoa City. Both carry troubled pasts, and both are searching for a fresh start. Their growing connection feels natural despite the baggage each of them carries. However, if their relationship becomes public knowledge, the reaction from friends and family could be explosive. A relationship that began with suspicion. When Matt first reappeared, Phyllis viewed him as little more than a tool to use against the Newman family. She had no intention of trusting him or allowing him into her life. Everything changed, however, after Matt risked himself to save Nick Newman. That heroic act dramatically shifted Phyllis's perspective. Instead of seeing Matt as the dangerous man everyone feared, she began believing he was genuinely trying to become someone better. Saving Nick wasn't just an ordinary gesture. It carried deep personal meaning for Phyllis. Nick remains the father of her daughter, Summer Newman, and despite everything they have endured over the years, Phyllis still has lasting affection and respect for him. Their romantic relationship may be over, but their shared history and commitment as parents ensure that Nick will always hold an important place in her heart. In fact, not too long ago, Phyllis had even hoped to reunite with him. Because of that history, Matt's willingness to save Nick made a lasting impression. It also explains why Phyllis has become increasingly protective of him. Victor's influence raises concerns. Phyllis has repeatedly worried about Matt's future. Earlier, she feared he might face prison if legal proceedings continued. Now her attention has shifted toward Victor Newman, whose plans involving Matt leave her deeply uneasy. Rather than believing Victor wants justice, Phyllis suspects he intends to manipulate Matt as part of his ongoing conflict with Kane Ashby. From her point of view, Victor isn't simply targeting Kane. He may also be using Matt as a disposable pawn. Phyllis doesn't trust Victor's motives and fears that both men could ultimately be destroyed if Victor's scheme succeeds. Her concern for Matt has become increasingly obvious, suggesting that her feelings are growing beyond simple gratitude. A sweet invitation. This week, Matt approaches the situation in a thoughtful and charming way. Instead of bluntly asking Phyllis on a date, he tells her a story about a man suffering from memory loss who asks a woman he recently met to spend time with him. The fairy tale style approach is clearly Matt's indirect way of inviting Phyllis out. Whether she immediately accepts remains uncertain. She may hesitate because she understands how terrible the relationship would look to nearly everyone around them. Still, the chemistry between them continues building, making it easy to imagine her eventually saying yes. After all, neither Matt nor Phyllis has many supporters left in Genoa City. They understand each other's loneliness in ways few others can. Victor may continue exercising influence over Matt for now, but that control is unlikely to last forever. Since the criminal charges against Matt have been dropped, Victor could find it increasingly difficult to maintain leverage over him in the future. Keeping the romance secret. If Phyllis agrees to date Matt, she may decide to keep the relationship hidden initially. A secret romance would allow both of them to explore their feelings without immediately facing judgment from the people around them. Of course, Keeping secrets in Genoa City rarely works for long. Eventually, someone would likely discover the truth, forcing the couple into the spotlight. Once their relationship becomes public, the fallout could be enormous. Daniel could reach his breaking point. One of the strongest reactions would almost certainly come from Daniel Romalotti. Daniel's patience with his mother has already been stretched to its limit after years of questionable decisions. He and Summer endured tremendous emotional pain when Phyllis faked her own death during the Jeremy Stark storyline. That deception forced both children to grieve unnecessarily, leaving scars that have never completely healed. Although Daniel and Summer eventually welcomed their mother back into their lives, rebuilding that trust took considerable time. Then came Phyllis's involvement with Kane in the plan to seize control of Newman Enterprises. Her pursuit of revenge, power, and financial gain once again hurt people Daniel and Summer cared about deeply. Even though Phyllis eventually returned Newman Enterprises to Victor, Daniel remains convinced she acted for the wrong reasons rather than out of genuine remorse. Learning that his mother is now romantically involved with Matt could push Daniel over the edge. He would likely rush to tell Summer, and together they might question whether Phyllis has learned anything from her past mistakes. Can Matt truly change? Despite widespread skepticism, Matt genuinely appears determined to become a different man. He has expressed regret for the pain he caused and seems committed to making amends wherever possible. His recent actions suggest someone trying to build a better future rather than repeating old mistakes. Unfortunately, Daniel and Summer may not care about those efforts. From their perspective, Matt remains someone responsible for terrible crimes. Regardless of any personal growth, simply seeing their mother become emotionally attached to him could be enough to alarm them. Many people would also worry that Matt's transformation might not last forever. Whether he continues walking the path toward redemption or eventually slips back into old habits remains one of the show's biggest unanswered questions. A career opportunity could spark another war. Another interesting possibility involves Phyllis helping Matt rebuild his professional life. She could potentially offer him a position at Arabesque or another business, giving him a legitimate opportunity to move forward. Such a decision would almost certainly infuriate Victor. Victor has his own plans involving Matt and would likely view Phyllis's interference as direct sabotage. Kay might also object if Matt suddenly found stability through Phyllis instead of remaining tied to Victor's schemes. Phyllis has never been afraid of challenging Victor, and she often enjoys provoking him whenever the opportunity arises. Hiring Matt would accomplish exactly that. Of course, doing so could ignite another major battle between Phyllis and Victor, placing both her career and personal life directly in the crossfire. Sharon's emotional dilemma. Perhaps the most complicated reaction would come from Sharon Newman. No one has suffered more because of Matt's past actions. Years ago, Matt assaulted Sharon and later attempted to assault her again. He repeatedly terrorized her, nearly killed her, tried to murder Nick, framed Nick for murder, and later returned to threaten Sharon's family once more. His list of crimes extends even further. Matt endangered Noah Newman, attempted to kill multiple members of the Newman family, and was responsible for getting Nick addicted to fentanyl. His history is filled with violence, manipulation, and trauma. Given everything Sharon has endured, it would be completely understandable if she struggled to accept Phyllis dating him. Friendship faces its toughest test. Ironically, Phyllis and Sharon have recently developed an unexpected friendship after years of rivalry. Following countless conflicts, betrayals, and arguments, the two women finally shared a heartfelt moment, embracing one another and promising mutual support. That breakthrough represented significant growth for both characters. A romance between Phyllis and Matt could place that fragile friendship under tremendous strain. Sharon might feel hurt, disappointed, or even betrayed by Phyllis's decision. At the same time, her concern would likely extend beyond anger. Knowing everything Matt once did, Sharon could genuinely fear that Phyllis might eventually become another victim. Still, Sharon is also known for her compassion and willingness to forgive. She may eventually recognize that Matt's previous behavior was influenced by serious mental health struggles and acknowledge the possibility that he truly has changed. Whether that understanding is enough to accept Phyllis's relationship remains to be seen. A romance that could reshape Genoa City. The possibility of Phyllis and Matt becoming an official couple has all the ingredients for a major storyline. Their growing attraction, shared loneliness, and mutual understanding provide a believable foundation for romance. Yet every step they take toward each other threatens to create conflict with their children, Victor, Sharon, and many others throughout Genoa City. If Phyllis ultimately accepts Matt's invitation, their relationship could become one of the most controversial pairings the town has seen in years. Whether love proves stronger than public outrage will determine if this unexpected romance survives, or if the pressure from everyone around them tears it apart before it truly begins. Lesson for our viewers. Today's story reminds us that trust, honesty, and patience are some of the most valuable things we have. Kyle's determination to save Diane shows the importance of standing by the people we love, while Nikki's struggle proves that hiding our pain from family can sometimes make things even harder. At the same time, Phyllis and Matt's growing connection teaches us that people can change, but rebuilding trust takes time, actions, and accountability, not just promises. Before judging someone, it's wise to look at who they are today, while still remembering the lessons of the past. In life, love deserves a second chance only when it is supported by genuine change, honesty, and respect. For more of the latest updates and behind-the-scenes secrets from Young and the Restless, make sure to hit subscribe and ring that bell. Stay in the know with every new release.